Hello everyone. Today we will be covering what many people call the game of the century. It was played in the Marshall Chess Club between Donald Byrne and Bobby Fischer. I think it's important to note the different stages of their careers. At that point, Donald Byrne was one of the leading American chess masters, having won the 1953 U.S. Open. Fischer, on the other hand, was a young prospect, not the world champion we know him as today. This win for Fischer was a sign for things to come. Without further ado, let's begin. Donald Byrne is playing the white pieces and opens with knight to f3, the ready. Fischer responds knight f6, and now Byrne plays c4, transposing the position into an English opening. Fischer plays g6, trying to fianchetto his bishop, and following the developing moves knight c3, bishop g7, d5, castles, bishop to f4, and d5, the position has once again transposed, this time into the Grunfeld defense, known for being extremely complex, but the general idea behind most Grunfeld positions is to let white get a big center and then fight back. Byrne now brings his queen to b3, defending his pawn and activating his queen. Fischer takes on c4, and then we get queen takes c4. Fischer plays c6 to stop the double attack on that pawn, and now Byrne plays e4, taking more space in the center. Now following knight b to d7, rook d1, knight b6, queen c5, and bishop to c4, we have the first critical point in the game. What white should have done here is develop the light-squared bishop somewhere, then get castled to ensure king safety. Instead, Byrne plays bishop to g5. And modern-day computers evaluate this as -2 for black. Keep in mind that this is 1953, and good chess computers didn't exist back then, but the white king not having castles is exploited by Fischer when he plays his first brilliant move, knight to a4. On the surface, this just looks like a free knight, and also has absolutely nothing to do with the king on e1. But if the knight is taken, then Fischer would have played knight takes e4, forking the bishop and queen and using the e-file for an attack. For example, if the queen tries to go for a trade, then that deflects the white queen away from control of the a5 square, and following this sequence of moves white's queen is pinned. So instead, queen to a3 is played, and following knight takes c3, b takes c3, and knight takes e4, it looks like black has a fork with bishop takes e7, but Bobby completely ignores this threat and goes queen to b6, and the rook cannot be taken. Because now black retakes with the bishop, and when the queen retreats, the knight would sacrifice itself, and once again Fischer would take advantage of the king not castling and pinning the white queen. If black tried to develop the bishop instead, trying to castle, then following rook to e8 and castles, that bishop is straight up hanging. So instead of all of that, white tries to develop the bishop immediately, trying to castle. I'll give you 5 seconds to find what move Fischer played in this position. Fischer played knight takes c3, yet another brilliant move. You can't take the knight, because the rook and queen will team together to win the bishops back with this sequence of moves. Notice here that white pawn structures are disjointed and black's pawns are connected, so the endgame favors black. The rook also can't be taken because of the sequence of moves I showed before. So instead, Byrne doesn't take the rook and plays bishop c5, thinking he's gonna attack the queen then win the knight. Fischer finally moves his rook out of the line of fire with rook e8 check, and after the king moves, he plays another brilliant move that I will give you some time to find. In this position, Fischer plays the only move in the position that keeps the advantage, bishop to e6. Once again, this move makes zero sense on the surface, but if you take the queen like Byrne does in game, then bishop takes c4, king g1, knight e2 check, and this is what we call a windmill, because black's knight can move anywhere it wants and the only option for white is to move back and forth with the king. Black takes advantage of this and takes a pawn, then putting his knight in a position to attack the rook, before finally taking the bishop on b3. White goes queen b4, attacking the light-squared bishop, and black responds rook a4 and somehow, everything is defended. Byrne takes on b3, but now the knight captures the rook and now it's more or less over. Fischer takes some pawns and makes some trades. He goes b5 to defend his pawn, then moves his king out of a pin, then finds a nice mating sequence with rook to c2 checkmate. Notice how every move closes the mating net around the king. While Fischer didn't do too well in this tournament, he would go on to win the US Championship in 1957, at the age of 14, and would go on to become the world chess champion in 1972.